Alpacas, llamas. Llamas are about twice the size of alpacas, and the two look so similar it would be easy to confuse an alpaca for a young llama. Despite being so much larger, llamas actually produce far less fleece than alpacas, which have been bred over thousands of years to provide luxurious fiber. Llamas, rather than being kept for their fleece, which is much rougher than that of alpacas, are actually bred to be used as a form of transport. The two animals are often seen together, since llamas can be used to guard alpacas and other animals. The two can breed, but this is generally not desirable, since the offspring would be too small for a pack animal and too rough to provide any wool. Seals, sea lions. Have you ever wondered about the main differences between seals and their second cousins, the sea lions? Both seals and sea lions, together with the walrus, are pinnipeds, which means fin-footed in Latin. But seals' furry, generally stubby front feet, thinly webbed flippers, actually, with a claw on each small toe, seem petite in comparison to the mostly skin-covered, elongated fore-flippers that sea lions possess. Secondly, sea lions have small flaps for outer ears. The earless, or true, seals lack external ears altogether. You have to get very close to see the tiny holes on the sides of a seal's sleek head. Third, sea lions are noisy. Seals are quieter, vocalizing via soft grunts. Fourth, while both species spend time both in and out of the water, seals are better adapted to live in the water than on land. Though their bodies can appear chubby, seals are generally smaller and more aquadynamic than sea lions. At the same time, their hind flippers angle backward and don't rotate. This makes them fast in the water, but basic belly crawlers on terra firma. Sea lions, on the other hand, are able to walk on land by rotating their hind flippers forward and underneath their big bodies. This is why they are more likely to be employed in aquaria and marine shows. Finally, seals are less social than their sea lion cousins. They spend more time in the water than sea lions do, and often lead solitary lives in the wild, coming ashore together only once a year to meet and mate. Sea lions congregate in gregarious groups called herds or rafts that can reach upwards of 1,500 individuals. It's common for scores of them to haul out together and loll about in the sand, comprising an amorphous pile in the noonday sun. Dolphins, porpoises. While the difference between these two is clearer than some of the other entries on this list, porpoises are not nearly as familiar or common as dolphins, which means that a lot of people would mistake porpoises for an odd-looking dolphin. The most visible difference is that dolphins have long snouts protruding from their faces, as opposed to the rounder face of the porpoise, which resembles that of a whale. Another easy-to-spot difference is that porpoises have a solid, triangular dorsal fin, while dolphins have one that is curved like a hook. It is unknown if dolphins and porpoises can breed. Some believe that they are genetically capable, but that they dislike the idea. Salamanders, lizards. Though they both have similar body shapes, lizards are reptiles, along with turtles, snakes, crocodiles, dinosaurs, and yes, birds, while salamanders are amphibians, along with toads, frogs. This means lizards have dry, scaly skin, while salamanders have moist, porous skin. Lizards all must breathe with lungs, just as humans do. Salamanders, on the other hand, can breathe through their skin via gills, via lungs, or in some cases, via their skin and lungs. Another major difference between lizards and salamanders is their reproduction. Lizards have leathery, partly calcified, shelled eggs that are typically buried in sand or dirt, but a few species are hatched while still inside the mother before birth. Salamanders, as amphibians, mostly lay their eggs in water where the larvae hatch, and after some time usually metamorphose and return to land. Lizards can be found most anywhere on land, while salamanders must stay where they won't dry out, under logs or leaves, underground, or directly in water. Donkeys, mules. In terms of physical appearance, donkeys and mules are quite similar. Mules have smaller, more horse-like ears, and the tail of a horse, long hair coming from a small stump, while donkeys have a tail that more closely resembles that of a cow, a long, continuous muscle with a small tuft of hair at the end. But the main difference between donkeys and mules is that mules are sterile, and they're born by breeding male donkeys with female horses. They are said to be stronger, calmer, and more capable workers than donkeys, and even have an extra chromosome. Frogs, toads. Here are more than 400 different species of frog, and 300 types of toad, so it's quite difficult to provide any surefire way of telling the difference. Generally, frogs are smaller than toads, with bulging eyes, strong legs for jumping, and webbed feet for swimming. Toads' legs, on the other hand, are more adapted to walking. Frogs have smooth, slimy skin. Toads have dry skin covered in warts. Some kinds of frog and toad can mate with one another. Cheetahs, leopards. There are many differences between cheetahs and leopards, both in their behavior and in their appearance. The easiest physical difference to spot is that cheetahs have solid, black round spots, while leopards have black patterns shaped like broken rings. Cheetahs, the fastest land animals on the planet, are twice as fast as leopards, and they hunt during the day. Leopards prefer to hunt at night, and usually drag their prey into treetops. Neither animal is particularly social, but male cheetahs will sometimes form groups of 2 or 3. It is unknown whether or not these animals can crossbreed, and given their dwindling numbers, scientists are unlikely to force them. Turtles, tortoises. This one is quite easy to remember once you know the difference. Turtles spend almost all of their lives in the water, and therefore have fins instead of stumps. Sea turtles live almost exclusively in the water, only occasionally venturing onto the sand to lay eggs. Freshwater turtles will sometimes climb onto rocks or banks near their rivers or ponds in order to soak up the sun. Tortoises, on the other hand, are exclusively land-dwelling. They can't swim at all. They have stubby feet, live in hot and dry places, and dig burrows. Turtles and tortoises cannot mate. Alligators, crocodiles. Don't know a gator from a crocodile? You're probably not alone. Although these large reptiles belong to different families, they share a number of similarities, including long snouts, powerful tails, short legs, and bony plated backs. But there are some easy ways to tell them apart. The first is the shape of the snout. In alligators, it's broad and U-shaped, while in crocodiles, it's narrow and V-shaped. Next are the teeth. In the case of alligators, the lower teeth are typically not visible when the mouth is shut. In crocodiles, however, some teeth in the bottom jaw appear, most notably the large fourth tooth. Another difference is color. Gray or black. It's probably a gator. Olive or tan. A crocodile. The two reptiles also differ in location. Crocodiles are usually found in saltwater habitats, while alligators prefer freshwater areas. And last, but definitely not least, is behavior. Crocodiles are typically more aggressive than gators. African Asian elephants. African elephants are slightly larger and slightly heavier than their Asian cousins, but size won't really help you to identify one from the other unless they're side by side. To identify a lone elephant, there are two main features to look for. Firstly, an Asian elephant will have 2 domes on its head, while the African will only have 1. Secondly, the African elephant's trunk will have 2 fingers at its end, whereas the Asian will only have 1. There has only been one recorded instance of the two types breeding. That was in 1978, and the baby, Mati, was a mix of the above characteristics. Unfortunately, Mati died after 2 weeks. Aardvarks and Anteaters. They both start with an A, have long snouts, and rely on a diet of ants. But the similarities between aardvarks, anteaters, end there. They are altogether different species. Anteaters belong to the suborder Vermilingua, and aardvarks are the only living species of the order Tubulidentata. Aardvarks are found in Africa, anteaters in Central and South America. Aardvarks have claws for digging, but anteaters have paws with such dramatically long claws that they must ball up their paws for an awkward knuckle-walking gait. Anteaters have more fur and small ears. Aardvarks have light, coarse hair and large ears. That's all for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.